Hey, pretentious engineer here. I know you didn't ask, but welcome to your weekly one-on-one where I tackle some of the internet's most challenging questions. After over a decade of advancing surgical robotics, AR and VR at Johnson & Johnson, I made a strategic exit to continue life in Japan. I've made it my personal mission to help engineers, global leaders, and entrepreneurs find their way so they can secure their next best opportunity. Today, we're going to jump into our third module in my flagship course, How to Say Goodbye, which will empower you to craft your own strategic exit. My hope is that the learnings from this 9-module course will empower you to land a job at a targeted 30% pay increase, living where you desire, and loving what you do. Many colleagues of mine struggle to discern how my wife and I were able to navigate various immigration, housing, financial, and employment risks during our exit. So I've decided to synthesize everything we've learned so you can progress out of that job that's killing you inside. This course is broken into 3 major movements. The first of which is inertia, which illuminates all the constraining forces that keep you in a job that doesn't have your best interest in mind, limiting your future possibilities. Today we'll do the final course in that module set. The second movement, impact, acknowledges an intentional choice to break through these inertial forces in the pursuit of securing your next. And the final movement, momentum, contains the secret sauce of how to exit with 2 of your greatest assets intact, your integrity and your network, both of which enable your reputation to prosper, leading to downstream opportunities. So what are golden handcuffs and how do we break them? Let's find out together. Now, if I'm honest, I have no idea where this term golden handcuffs came from, but the last 4 to 5 years within Johnson & Johnson, I was definitely held captive by them. They're golden because on the surface, these are all good and sometimes illustrious benefits. It's a privilege to work for an employer that actually has them. But they're a handcuff because they retain talent, typically below market standard price. So as you get shackled with more and more handcuffs, it becomes more difficult to break free into something new, particularly with a different employer. Now, a quick note on privilege. You may be in a job that is abusive and coercive to you with no golden handcuffs in sight. And if that's happening, I'm sorry. And this lesson might not be the most encouraging for you. But we're definitely committed to getting you out of that role as well. I had the privilege of working for Johnson & Johnson, which does employ the gold. And I realize that not all of you have these kinds of opportunities, but even as you're tying your hands with a future employer, I want you to be aware of them. So I do not want to sound entitled by sharing my perks. I was privileged to have them. Rather, I felt more and more constrained by them, and nobody was talking about this, so I had no grounds to navigate it other than figuring out what was happening to me. So that's why I share it in transparency, even though it may be uncomfortable for some of you. So hopefully in this module, let's approach your current and future roles with eyes wide open as you cuff yourself to a new employer for a given season. All right, let's get to work. Okay, friends, so I have notes of all the factors or cuffs that I experienced in my career. So let's just go through them incrementally. The first of which is kind of the big one that most of you will experience right away, is the culture. And I added in here the mission. And let me explain. So culture, is ping pong and free lunch or free snacks. It's team parties. And the mission is doing something that seems valuable or meaningful to humanity. I advanced amazing, minimally invasive surgical technology that reaches hundreds of thousands of people a year. Those 2 factors alone can retain people in a company for a lifetime. And I am not against lifers. I planned on being a lifer at Johnson & Johnson, and circumstances made me take a really hard look at our choices, and we decided to take the jump and stay in Japan for a season, which is funny because 114 days later, we're now moving to Chicago in 7 days. That'll be later content. But these are 2 very well shaped things. Companies are very intentional about the mission and vision they communicate and how they captivate employees to come and stay to progress that mission. And that's what generates profit and benefits humanity if you're in one of the humanity shaping kind of companies. Now, if you're working for military functions, there's ways to argue that shapes humanity. But, if you're in medtech or making cool AI technology, like there's a way to shape that mission so that it feels like you're contributing to the greater good. And for the culture, this is also very intentional. Companies budget a huge amount of money for team parties. I mean, relative to R&D, it's not that large, but to try to get employees to stay more engaged, to retain them, and for them to be more fruitful and feel like it's a great, inclusive place for them to work. These are all manufactured aspects of business. So just to pull apart the curtain, culture and mission don't happen by accident. They're intentional and therefore retaining you. So that's the first one. And it feels golden, right? It's shaped. Okay, the next one. These are going to add up. Oh, I forgot my little dots. We got to draw the fun dots. Let's see. All right, this is another one. This is kind of like an offshoot of culture, but this is big for keeping me at J&J. Work-life integration. Now, every year that I worked at Johnson & Johnson, I felt like I could shape a better work-life integration, which is a little bit elusive because I ended up spending more and more time working. But I felt like I had more control, especially coming out of COVID and like doing things remote and living in the gaps. But as my job became more toxic and volatile the last year and a half of my international assignment, I started to realize that golden handcuff was like bronze. Like it started to erode quickly. But I had this, I don't want to call it a lie, but this thought process that I have 2 kids now, or I have 3 kids now, or I'm expecting my fourth. And if I jump to another company, I'm going to have to work really hard to build rapport with all these people so that I can get to the same level of work-life integration. If I go to GE, they're going to be expecting 60 hours a week. Like I put all these like limits that I couldn't find a work-life integration at another company just because I had found it within Johnson & Johnson because my managers supported it and I learned how to self-advocate. But also, this is a manufactured aspect of culture. So be aware of that. All right, the next one. We'll work through these quickly. This is one that I got burned on really bad over 10 years. Next level. This is kind of the promise of a future opportunity of, hey, jump through these extra 3 hoops, and then at year-end calibration, you'll be set up to get, your next promotion. Like just keep working, or hey, it's just a matter of timing. This is all going to shape up. I got pushed on like, wait for the next promotion, lateral jump, lateral jump, lateral jump, all the way until I was lateral jumping into a global assignment at an inequitable pay gap. So even as I was heading out, someone was giving me congrats of like, hey, it's the people that do these international global assignments, they end up leading the whole company. Never happened with me. Maybe if I went back to New Jersey, we'll never know, right? So this promise of future next level is a common tool to kind of keep you. I had a lot of friends that, they'd go and get a competing offer because they were continuing to not get promoted. Like they thought, if I just launched this product, I stayed with it for 3 years. Once I launch it, that's demonstrating everything I needed to go from senior engineer to staff engineer. They go through all those hoops, and at the end of 3 years, you know what happens? A lot of them still don't get promoted. They start looking external, and then they go and get a job offer from a competitor in robotics, and then they shared it with their managers. Within 2 days, they're promoted. So a lot of times this next level promise it's all smoke. And unfortunately, I burned a lot of time waiting to secure that next level. Meanwhile, my finances suffered as I was trying to raise up a family. So be aware of that golden handcuff. Next one. I mean, this one's just normal benefits, but in the US particularly, medical plans are really important. In Japan, it's a little bit less of a factor. But for us having a growing family, working for Johnson & Johnson, I kind of had this idea that I couldn't get the same level of medical support elsewhere, which just isn't true. It's a good perk. Oh, 1 second. All right. Now we're getting into like the really good ones, the complex ones, the ones that are shaped over time. It's hard, friends. That's a hard one to break. This is why we stay. It's the people we see at the water cooler. Now, I don't have a good ethical answer to this, but the reality is when you spend 2, 3, 5, 8, 10 years in the same institution like I did, You walk the halls, you have rapport, you can catch up, who has kids, who's getting married, what they do on the weekends. Like going to a new company is 100% restart, and it takes years for a business to feel like family. Unfortunately, these people don't pay you, right? So when you stay in these institutions and keep moving vertically, they can promote you at a lower price point than if you're moving externally between companies. So you get into some really hard choices. Like this is why people become lifers. It's like the network. You can also get things done faster when you literally know everyone and who can do the doing. This is what I got great at J&J. And I had to tell myself if I move into another institution, I could rebuild a network and be just as fast. It's not like this is only for J&J, but you start to believe that I know how things work here. Things working elsewhere gets hard. So you start to self-limit yourself that you can't operate at the same caliber elsewhere if you start again. Also, we'll have another module on network down the road on how to actually take that network with you when you exit. That's in the third part of this series. I have some cool tricks in there. All right, this was a big one for me. This was actually a huge issue with my exit, so we'll talk about it. Reimbursement. Now, I thank you, J&J, if you're watching, for subsidizing a large portion of my college, but not all of my college. So I got a master's in global leadership at Fuller Seminary. It's a great institution, and I'm really happy for the skills I gained. I was able to leverage the majority of those skills as I was gaining them within Johnson & Johnson, and Johnson & Johnson repaid me for those. When you do tuition reimbursement, and it's different from company to company, they typically have stipulations. For mine, it's any course that you took, you needed to stay with J&J for 2 years beyond taking that course. Otherwise, you'd be asked to repay it. Now, based on the timing of my exit, this became very challenging because I graduated right on the back end of my exit. I studied for 5 years in parallel to doing global leadership at J&J. I was studying global leadership and leading my family of 4 in Japan. So I ended up paying for the last couple quarters or semesters out of pocket. Originally, I was planning for J&J to reimburse it. I decided not to submit it because I didn't want the system to catch me. If that makes sense. I just burned the cash and bailed. But it was really hard because initially I was planning on like I have to, stay with the company until I graduate because I can't afford college. And I couldn't, but I did it anyway to graduate. So this is also one of those areas where you feel like a psychological responsibility, like, or at least I did, and maybe that's something I need to break in myself of, wow, J&J paid for all this for me to learn, so I should stay and bring all that learning back into J&J. But they had a contract, and I fulfilled my half by paying the last couple classes myself, and I was really great at my job because of what I was learning that they were paying for. So I'm sharing that in case any of you have the same feelings I've had. So a lot of you won't. Well, actually, I don't know what percentage of you won't. Let me know in the discussion board on that. All right, now these next two are very privilegey, so I want to just air that out. I'm almost done if you want your ice cream. I'm bribing my daughter with ice cream if she just lets me finish this video before we move. Okay. Long-term incentives. I worked very hard, just like you. I worked exceptionally hard in certain seasons of life, and I was expecting that would live into this. And instead of receiving this at multiple times, I received this. And it seems very arrogant to put an X on it, but I will explain. A long-term incentive is typically when a company recognizes high performers and they want to retain that individual. So what they will do is give you some kind of time-sensitive stock option. So basically, it's complicated. I'm not an expert in this, but I would basically be allowed to purchase a certain amount of stocks within Johnson & Johnson at a discounted rate, but they wouldn't vest for like 2 to 5 years, or you have the ability to like execute the purchase at a certain amount of time. And the goal is to, again, keep you or retain you for 2 to 3 years so that you get this big payout. And these payouts can be very large and very lucrative. Unfortunately for me, the option I chose was the stock price difference. And what this means is I would lock in the rate of the stock at a certain point, trusting that it would grow. And then I get like a whole bunch of stock difference. So as the stock goes up in price, after 2 to 3 years, I get like all the increase to execute. It was kind of odd. I forgot it was called like RSUs or something. Anyway, based on the timing of my exit, one of them wouldn't even be vested. The first one I got would, but the stock price over 2.5 years had dropped because of a COVID boom and then a cave. But long-term incentives are very complicated. And again, I wish they had worked for me because they retained me, but they never paid me because the stock price dropped out. So they were worth zero. Even though I had outperformed a lot of my peers, I never got a next level promotion in cash now. They were supposed to be valued at around a full year's salary across the 2 bonuses I received, and they were worth nothing. So be mindful. They're probably very valuable to you, and they might be worth sticking around for 2 years, but they are a golden handcuff. And for me, they were definitely just painted with fool's gold, right? So last one. This was the biggest one for me. It might not be the biggest one for you, but as I stacked up 4 kids, it really mattered. I have to twist. Let me write it down. You should all be used to this by now. Okay. All right. 8 weeks parental leave. Now, right before the birth of our first child, J&J laid out a new plan for fathers to basically be able to take 8 weeks paid parental leave to support their kids. I didn't plan on doing it. There's a whole story on how I ended up taking all 8 weeks and how that just radically like reframed how I approached fatherhood in general and work-life integration. But I leveraged it for every single kid. It was a key perk. And Akio was born in Japan, and while they were trying to relocate us home or back to the US quickly, I was like, hey, we have a baby coming. Like, I need to take leave in Japan. That was kind of the last handcuff for me. In this case, I was going to use it. I refused to leave until I used it because I wanted time with my kids. And because we were paycheck to paycheck in Japan, we weren't set up to just like leave and for me to take the time. So for you, you got to be aware of different factors that retain you and which ones you consent to, just like the pot exercise, and which ones you don't. So let's get into our deep questions. I'm going to let this baby move because I could tell he wants to move. All right. So parental leave was a big one for me. I leveraged it. I'm not having any more children, so it's no longer a handcuff. All right, let's get into praxis. So that's the wrong page. Come back. All right. So first question. What? Here we go. Are there any handcuffs that frustrate you? So for me, frustrate is a kind word for how the long-term incentives happened. I was actually hoping to be able to leverage those in our exit to cover schooling costs for our kids. And there was a lot of rage as I started navigating the system and realized what I had tied my hands to, what I had worked so hard for, and how it was literally worth nothing. Like, it was actually very motivating in my decision to exit, was the fact that that had happened to me. Again, ideally, if you get one, hopefully it vests and it's worth a lot of money, and that's great. But life and the stock market is unpredictable, and it was very damaging for us. Okay, next one. How do these handcuffs cost you? if they remain. So this is like an opportunity cost question, right? Everything has an opportunity cost. While these are very valuable, having medical, a work-life integration, ping pong. Okay, these kids are just gonna be loud. It's fine. Having all these perks is a perk, and it seems valuable on the surface. But if they're keeping you in a job that doesn't pay you equitably, doesn't have you growing and learning new skills in different industries or fields, or doesn't give you the time with family you do deserve and desire, what's it cost you? Like, what are you giving up by keeping yourself shackled? And I had so many conversations with so many of my peers and mentors during all the transitions leading up to the exit, of just recognizing, like, for me, the last one that needed to break was the parental leave. Um, you might need to let go of some of these. Whereas I've seen other people that were so tied up with long-term incentive that they were scrambling just to find themselves a job that paid anything to keep the incentives. Because again, they were so shackled. Now, I mean, it's still a financial perk. They're going to pay for their kids' college with it, right? But the behavior was, I can't leave Johnson and Johnson because I need to keep these perks. Even if there was a different job that would be more fruitful and fulfilling for them, they were tied to revenue coming that way. And that's something that I want to be apprehensive of in future roles. All right, one more thing. I'm gonna go be a dad. Are there any handcuffs that you're unwilling to break? This is another excellent question. For me, it was parental leave. I was unwilling to break that. I felt that I needed to receive that benefit. I needed that time with my children, and I did kind of have this idea of, like, I've earned it. Like, I've worked this hard and I had this kid, so now I'm going to take this time off, and then we'll figure out if I can find a job to stay in J&J, which was the initial plan during my parental leave, or if I go elsewhere. And I chose elsewhere, which is fun. So, friends, are there any handcuffs you're unwilling to break? Name them. Just like you also in the previous module had to think about what are the factors that are heating your pot and why do you choose to stay in the pot. These are kind of like the pseudo positive factors, whereas the other ones are like the pain factors. Both can give you like mixed signals on whether or not you should just make a decision and start looking external. And my hope is that I can just provide you clarity, because a lot of this is like shrouded in fog, and I don't want you to burn 2 to 5 years turning in a job that's not going to work for you long term, and then realizing it through a layoff or just stalling out and getting frustrated. I think there's something fulfilling out there for you. So keep pushing. I don't even know what the next module is. I'll scroll ahead, but you won't be able to see it because it's red. Impact. The next one is this idea that everyone is replaceable, but your life is not. So looking forward to it, friends. Keep changing the world. I'll see you on the next one.